Christ is risen. Blessed and glorious, bright Thursday to all of you. Continuing this theme of discussing persons who are connected with the crucifixion and resurrection of Christ, I wanted to begin to talk today about the holy apostles, the 12 and the 70, those who were close to Christ. And so today I want to read to you an excerpt, one of my favorite passages out of the New Testament. It is Luke and Cleopas on the road to Emmaus following the resurrection of Christ. Now behold, two of them were traveling that same day to a village called Emmaus, which is about 7 miles from Jerusalem. And they talked together of all these things which had happened. So it was, while they conversed and reasoned, that Jesus himself drew near and went with them. But their eyes were restrained, so that they did not know him. And he said to them, "What kind of conversation is this that you have with one another as you walk and are sad?" Then one of those whose name was Cleopas answered and said to him, "Are you the only stranger in Jerusalem, and have you not known the things which have happened there in these days?" And he said to them, "What things?" And they said to him, "The things concerning Jesus of Nazareth, who is a prophet mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, and how the chief priests and our rulers delivered him to be condemned to death and crucified him. But we were hoping that it was he who was going to redeem Israel. Indeed, besides all this, today is the 3rd day since these things happened." Yes, and certain women of our company who arrived at the tomb early astonished us. When they did not find his body, they came saying that they had also seen a vision of the angels who said that he was alive. And certain of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but him they did not see. Then he said to them, "O foolish ones and slow of heart to believe in all that the prophets have spoken. Ought not the Christ to have suffered these things and to enter into his glory?" And beginning at Moses and all of the prophets, he expounded to them in all the scriptures the things written concerning himself. Then they drew near to the village where they were going, and he indicated that he would be going further. But they constrained him, saying, "Abide with us, for it is toward evening, and the day is far spent." And he went in to stay with them. Now it came to pass, as he sat at the table with them, that he took bread, blessed it, and broke it, and gave it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they knew him. And he vanished from their sight. And they said to one another, "Did not our heart burn within us while he talked with us on the road, and while he opened the scriptures to us?" What a glorious passage that is. I absolutely love it. We read it as one of the cycling resurrection gospels at Matins on Sunday mornings. If you don't come to Matins, then you almost never, outside of Pascha, hear proclaimed the resurrection of Christ in the reading of the scriptures within the church services. There are always different gospel readings prescribed on Sundays at the Divine Liturgy, or even during the week, the different gospel readings we have prescribed. But the resurrection readings are prescribed to be read during Matins on Sunday. So if you don't come, you're not getting the gospel of the resurrection preached to you directly from the scriptures. So I would encourage you to consider that when we all can come back to church, again, as a group, as a family, then come back and include with your coming to Matins on Sunday morning, or Orthros, so that you can receive that proclamation of the gospel of the resurrection each week. Now, there are a couple of things I want to say. First of all, I said I love this passage from Luke's gospel, that Jesus, their eyes are constrained from recognizing him, and he's walking along with them, and he's questioning them. He's saying, "What are these things you're talking about as you walk along and you're sad?" And so, they begin to talk to him and explain to him. They're questioning him. "Are you the only stranger in Jerusalem? You don't know about these things?" He says, "What things?" And so they begin to talk to him about their grief and their loss with the death of Christ. And then he says something so beautiful. It's so. It kind of puts them in their place. slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Was it not necessary that the Christ should suffer these things? In other words, all of these things happened in order to fulfill that which had been written in the Holy Scriptures concerning the Christ. Now, it also says that he began to expound for them all of the things, beginning with Moses and all the prophets, written concerning himself in the Holy Scriptures. In other words, he went through the Scriptures and explained to them all of the things that were written about him and his coming and his living, his redeeming life and death, his suffering for us and for our salvation. One of those passages I want to read to you, it comes from the book of Isaiah. It's from the 6th hour service on Great and Holy Friday. Again, if you want to hear these Old Testament proclamations of the coming of the Messiah, then you hear them within the context of the services of the church. And so, in particular, on Holy Friday at the Royal Hours, there were quite a number of these Old Testament prophecies that were read. And here's one that I'm going to share with you, perhaps one of the most famous from Isaiah. Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. Yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that made us whole. And with his stripes we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned every one of us his own way. And the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and he was afflicted. Yet he opened not his mouth. Like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, and like a sheep that before its shearers is dumb, so he opened not his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away. And as for his generation, who considered that he was cut off out of the land of the living, stricken for the transgression of my people? And they made his grave with the wicked and with a rich man in his death. Although he had done no violence, and there was no deceit in his mouth. Yet it was the will of the Lord to bruise him, that he has put him to grief. When he makes himself an offering for sin, he shall see his offspring. He shall prolong his days. The will of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. He shall see the fruit of the travail of his soul and be satisfied. By his knowledge shall the righteous one, my servant, make many to be accounted righteous, and he shall bear all their iniquities. It's a powerful reading from Isaiah, and there are so many more readings like this in the Law and the Prophets. So I would encourage you, we only have a few minutes in these little daily video casts, but I would encourage you, you can find the text, if you didn't get a chance, by the way, to watch or participate in the hours of Great and Holy Friday, you can still go back on our church website and watch them and listen to these readings from the hours. And then also you can certainly Google and look up the text of these readings online from Great and Holy Friday and really begin to dig into the Old Testament scriptures and the prophecies concerning Christ. It was his desire to come and to become incarnate, to live, to suffer, and to die for us and for our salvation, to trample down death by his death, bestowing life upon those in the tombs, and granting all of us the opportunity, the invitation for salvation and for life everlasting. So may that same God, that same Lord who walked with Luke and Cleopas on the road to Emmaus, opening unto them, to their hearts, the knowledge of the Scriptures, of the things written concerning himself in the Scriptures, may that same Lord inspire you by the power and indwelling of his Holy Spirit to know him all the more, to understand all the more the great gift of salvation that he has accomplished for each of us, and may he grant us to live good and holy and pure and upright lives in a spirit of love, loving him and loving one another all the more perfectly with every day. Christ is risen. Indeed, he is risen.